Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical. But hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal than a friend, because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from your enemies. If you have no enemies, find a way to make them. Observance of the law. So this story recalls from the Han Dynasty, AD 222. So in this time of history, in Chinese history, when an emperor was put into power, nearly always a plot to kill the emperor was put into place only a year or two after he's taken the throne. And this cycle would continue for years. New generals would rise up and they would be assassinated. So to be emperor of China was to be surrounded by your very enemies who were plotting to kill you. Now, hundreds and hundreds of years later, General Chao Kyung-yin became emperor. To celebrate General Chao becoming emperor, he ordered a banquet, a celebration, invited the most powerful, commanders in the army. They all drunk, they all celebrated, and usually this is a time when the emperor would have killed off and sentenced all these men to death because they were the enemies plotting to kill him. That's what would happen in the past. So all these guys are, partly expecting to be murdered due to history. But instead, he addressed them, he acknowledged the fact that, I'm not going to read out all of what he said, but he acknowledged the fact that, actually, you know what? I am going to quote it. He said, "I do not doubt your allegiance, but if by some chance your subordinates seeking wealth and position were to force the emperor's yellow robe upon you in turn, how could you refuse it?" So, fearing for their lives, they all proclaim their innocence and their loyalty. They're trying to suck up to him. They don't want to die. But instead of killing them, what he did is he bribed them. He said, if you're willing to give up your commands, I will give you amazing fine estates, so housing, and women to accompany those estates for entertainment. And he basically said you can retire in peace in these estates. So he's bribing them instead of killing them. So instead of a life of anxiety and fear, they chose security and wealth. The next day, all the generals tendered their resignations and they retired. So the point of this story is that in one simple act, Sung turned the whole pack of quote-unquote friendly wolves who would have betrayed him and killed him into a group of docile lambs. So another story. At the time, China had splintered off into multiple kingdoms, and one of these kings was defeated, and they found out he was plotting to kill the general, the emperor. The emperor came to visit this quote-unquote traitor. Instead, he didn't lock him up, didn't kill him, he honored him, and he gave him a gift, a package. And he told the former king to open it on his way home, when he was halfway home. So this former king, someone who usually would have been sentenced to death, opens this package up. It contains all the documents containing his conspiracy. So he realized that this emperor knew of his murderous plans. He knew that he was going to kill him. He gave generosity of life, won him over, and became one of the emperor's most loyal assets, most loyal friends. So the big thing here to note is that he turns his quote-unquote enemies into his friends. Your enemies don't expect gifts or favors or mercy. Robert writes, "A man suddenly spared the guillotine is a grateful man indeed, and will go to the ends of the earth for the man who has pardoned him." The proverb, "Pick up a beef from kindness and learn the limitations of kindness." And another quote, "Men are more ready to repay an injury than a benefit, because gratitude is a burden and revenge is pleasure." Keys to power. Now, bringing it back to our current times, you see how it's affected history, and now bringing it back to reality, our reality. And Robert writes, "The problem is that you often don't know your friends as well as you imagine. Friends often agree on things in order to avoid an argument. They cover up their unpleasant qualities so as to not offend each other. They laugh extra hard at each other's jokes. Since honesty rarely strengthens friendship, you may never know how a friend truly feels. Friends will say they love your poetry, adore your music, envy your taste in clothes. Maybe they mean it, often they don't." And that's the thing, that's so true, because if you could just watch from above two friends behave and just sit back and objectively observe their behavior, and over time, you would see that this law is very true in the average person, because most people aren't honest enough to tell a friend these things. Or even anybody, just meeting someone for the first time, an acquaintance, a new friend. We're too afraid to reveal our true feelings. So this is when it can be a detriment to involve friends in a business. Or that's when going from a friendship to a relationship can be quite difficult. On the topic of favors and friendship, doing a favor for someone and receiving a favor from someone can be of detriment to you in some ways. You just have to observe it. He writes, the receipt of a favor can become oppressive. It means you've been chosen because you are a friend, not necessarily because you are deserving. There's almost a touch of condescension in the act of hiring friends that secretly afflicts them. You sometimes accept a favor from someone or do a favor for someone out of pity for certain qualities in them, because you know them well, or maybe because simply they're your friend and you've classed them as your friend, so you have to do them this favor. That can create resentment within yourself if that person takes advantage of that friendship and asks for multiple favors over and over and takes. As I was saying before, with using friends in business, the problem, Robert writes, the problem with using or hiring friends is that it will inevitably limit your power. The friend is rarely the one who is more able to help you, and in the end, skill and competence are far more important than friendly feelings. So if you're going to use a friend in any type of business or any type of formal relationship, then you have to really step back and ask yourself whether this person has these skills and competence to help you, whether you're just not blindly accepting them just because they're your friend and it's convenient. So maybe asking somebody else, another trusted, objective third party, whether this is a good idea, is a good way to avoid that situation. And to bring it back to enemies, whenever you can bury the hatchet with an enemy, make a point of putting them in your service. And I think that's a really good point. Most people wouldn't even think to approach someone they did not like in order for their own personal power and gain, and putting them in your service. Because everybody has skills, and a lot of the time your enemies are enemies because they have something of value. Your enemies are enemies because they are good at something. They have to be good at something. Maybe they're good at pissing you off. Well, that comes to some type of skill. And go deeper than that. Okay, what type of values does this person hold? Maybe you can use that to your advantage. Lincoln said you destroy an enemy when you make a friend of him. A lot of people think they don't have enemies, which can be dangerous. You don't know where your enemies are, and you can get attacked very easily without knowing. So never let the presence of enemies upset or distress you. Green writes, you are far better off with a declared opponent or two than not knowing where your real enemies lie. The man of power welcomes conflict, using enemies to enhance his reputation as a sure-footed fighter who can be relied upon in times of uncertainty. Image, the jaws of ingratitude. Knowing what would happen if you put a finger in the mouth of a lion. You would stay clear of it. With friends, you will have no such caution, and if you hire them, they will eat you alive with ingratitude. Reversal. So when times that using your friends can be beneficial, Robert talks about using a friend as a scapegoat to do your dirty work. It can be more beneficial to your reputation to have a friend take the fall and be the scapegoat. You're using their affection for you to your advantage, and that's quite manipulative. Most people wouldn't be comfortable with that. But understand, in a world of 7+ billion people, if you want to get ahead, you're going to need to bend your morals, and you're going to need to do things other people aren't willing to do. And it's not to say to be successful you need to do that, because many people are successful without being immoral. But I believe there's some truth in this, and there's some things to try to see if it works for you. But I feel like this role, and he says it in the book too, use the role as a scapegoat for someone who is not as close to you. So losing them doesn't really harm you in the long run. Now he reiterates the problem with working friends again, how it confuses boundaries and distance, but then he mentions if both parties come to an arrangement, understand the dangers and risks involved, a friend can be of great effect. But to always be on your toes, to always be on the lookout for any signs of emotional disturbance, such as envy or ingratitude, because that can be poisonous. Nothing is stable in the realm of power, and even the closest of friends can be transformed into the worst of enemies.